UMBASA.
In 1993, id Software released Doom, a heavy metal sci-fi shooter that is all guns, guts, and aggression. Not only did it literally define a genre, but its influences can still be felt to this very day, in some very unexpected ways. So join me on the shores of hell as we get knee-deep in the dead to rip and tear through the history of this titan of gaming in Doom, one hell of a legacy. Hey everyone, UmbasaMufasa here, and today I'm going to be talking about Doom. Now, Doom is a franchise I grew up with. I remember playing the original 3.5-inch floppy disk shareware version. I had the red Super Nintendo cartridge. I built my PC to be Doom themed and have been blown away by the 2016 reboot and Doom Eternal. And while I could do an entire video on just the Doom franchise and its multiple sequels, I'm going to spend this video looking at strictly the original and its impact on the gaming industry. So please allow me, an intellectual, to explain to you why Doom is so important. Let's start by taking a look at its most obvious contribution to the gaming industry with the birth of the FPS. If Doom is the father of the FPS, then Wolfenstein 3D is certainly its grandfather. But it would indeed be Doom that would take the DNA of id's earlier title and turn it into something truly extraordinary. Doom is one of those rare games that was not only incredibly popular and profitable at the time, but one whose core mechanics and gameplay still hold up to this very day. The game still has a visceral sense of intensity and an undeniable cool factor. After nearly 30 years, the intricate level design, iconic enemy types, and demonic setting create an ass-kicking heavy metal experience that absolutely lives up to the hype. And no shooter is complete without its arsenal. The standard FPS loadout of pistol, shotgun, machine gun, and rocket launcher was set in stone by Doom. They even included a chainsaw and BFG 9000 just for good measure. Besides featuring a legendary story mode, Doom would allow for cooperative and deathmatch game types over a local area network. Community efforts would even bring the game online through a dial-up connection. And speaking of deathmatch, the word itself was invented by John Romero, master of Doom and mastermind behind the madness of the gameplay and white-knuckle intensity, making the original Doom one of the pioneers in multiplayer online gaming. The hype around Doom was real, with it being described as Wolfenstein times 1 million. Despite the controversy surrounding the game's subject matter, it easily became one of the most popular titles of the decade. It was so hotly anticipated that the university servers they uploaded the game to release it crashed due to the amount of traffic generated by gamers clamoring to download their own copy. Doom was so popular that id Software was reportedly making over $100,000 a day in direct sales, all without needing to sell the game in a retail store thanks to their shareware model. And thanks to its success, back in 1993, the guys at id Software became the original rock stars of gaming. They bought Ferraris with Doom money, and its success and legacy launched them into the stratosphere of gaming's greatest legends. With success like this, the imitators would be soon to follow. Doom was so influential on the FPS genre that when new games of this style came out, the term FPS didn't even exist. Instead, they would simply be referred to, fittingly, as Doom clones, with some of the clones even being built on the very technology of Doom itself, with games like Heretic and Hexen. This only injected even more life in the newly minted FPS genre, but id Software was no stranger to licensing their engines, as John Carmack, id's technical genius, had previously broken the PC's side-scrolling limitations with its engine for Dangerous Dave and Commander Keen being licensed out as well. This advancement would single-handedly give PCs a fighting chance against the then dominant home consoles like the NES. They would continue on in this tradition with their later Quake engine and Doom 3 engine. This would lead to the creation of games like the iconic Half-Life and Call of Duty, both owing some of their legacy in part to id Software's groundbreaking technology. Beyond games built on their engines, the influence of Doom would extend to the entire PC gaming landscape. At its peak, Doom was installed on more computers than Windows itself, and Microsoft took notice. They were eager to expand their foothold on the emerging PC gaming market. They were impressed by the technology implemented in Doom and would create their DirectX API suite to allow more developers to create even more games of the same quality. Microsoft would even unveil this platform with Bill Gates appearing inside Doom, shotgun, trench coat, and all.
Our commitment is to make the tools, to make the platform better and better.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt me.
In 1995, Doom would be one of the first games ported over to Windows DirectX, and the man they put in charge of the job was none other than Gabe Newell himself. Half-Life 3 confirmed. DirectX is still one of the most popular APIs in use today. They would even go on to base their first ever home console around the DirectX platform, dubbing it the DirectX Box. Thankfully, this would be shortened to Xbox.
Quite frankly, I couldn't be more excited.
All of this means that any FPS that you ever played, damn near every PC game you have ever played, and every single game you have ever played on an Xbox console, including the new Series X, is just part of the chain reaction of innovation that was kicked off with the release of the original Doom. Doom's influence on the gaming industry doesn't stop there. It also contributed to the growth of some of the most important communities in gaming. John Carmack and John Romero wholeheartedly endorsed gamers' efforts to create new content for their game. They wanted to personally open the floodgates for community-made content, with Carmack intentionally building the engine in a way that allowed for all the game data to be stored independently of the engine in WAD files. As a result, a near limitless number of new levels and total conversions have been done over the years. Some of the most talented among them would even be contracted by id to make the master levels for Doom 2 in 1995. And Team TNT had a pair of 32-level episodes titled TNT Evolution and the Plutonium Experiment packaged and released officially as Final Doom in 1996. What's even crazier is that as recently as 2019, John Romero actually had created and released new levels for the original Doom. It's just cool to see that 28 years later, the game is still being supported by one of its original creators. id's open door policy on mods released a hell wave of creativity onto the quickly growing FPS market, and would leave its impact on the modding communities we still see to this very day. The speedrunning community for the original Doom was also quick to catch on. Besides WADs, Doom also had an ingenious way to record demos of gameplay. These demos would record all of the player's inputs, allowing them to be played back at a later time. The resulting file size was much smaller than full motion video, making them much easier to share in the early days of the internet. Pair that with the fact that Doom features an in-game timer for each level, and you have the perfect recipe for explosive growth in the Doom speedrunning community. These demos could even be created with special software allowing for frame-by-frame perfect inputs, resulting in a large tool-assisted speedrun community as well. This put Doom decades ahead of the arcade or console gamers, as runs had to be videotaped and mailed across the country for verification. This puts the early Doom speedrunning community much more close to what we have today. I consider the act of sitting down and playing Doom in the modern era as somewhat like reading classic literature. That's right, playing the original Doom in 2021 is like reading Moby Dick, except the whale is Satan and Ahab is Doom Guy with a BFG 9000. And when I think of the things that make a great modern FPS, I think of things like tight mechanics, a kick-ass arsenal, addictive multiplayer, and maybe even some DLC. And in 1993, Doom had all of these features and more. And while Doom has gone on to be a successful franchise in its own right, now under the tutelage of Marty Stratton and Hugo Martin, the original creators of Doom would go on to influence the industry in other ways as well. John Carmack himself took his genius to work for Oculus and is continuing to blaze the trail for the future of gaming in VR. And John Romero is still active today in the indie gaming community with Romero Games. The thing is, none of that matters. The sequels don't matter, the continued legacy of its creators don't matter. All that matters is that in 1993, the guys that did software made this one incredible thing. And that one incredible thing sent shockwaves through the gaming industry that we still feel to this very day. And not just gaming, Hollywood movies have been made off the Doom brand, giving us classic moments like this.
Semper Fi, motherfucker!
It deserves to be praised on the level of historic titles like Pong, Pac-Man, and Super Mario Bros., forever immortalized on the hallowed peaks of gaming's Mount Rushmore. Its day of release should be celebrated as a national holiday. Henceforth, December 10th shall now be known as Doomsday. We'll work on the name, but the point is, in 1993, Doom would not only give birth to the FPS genre, but it would also change the trajectory of the entire gaming industry forever. Its influence can be felt in everything from Animal Crossing to Apex Legends, and the very mention of its name should carry with it the respect it rightfully deserves as one of the most influential pieces of software ever released. Looking back, it's easy to see that Doom certainly has left one hell of a legacy. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. This one took me a little bit longer to make because I was mostly hooked on playing Doom 1 and Doom 2, and I'm sure there's some things that I left out about the legacy of Doom, so feel free to leave a comment below of anything that you think is important. Otherwise, feel free to check out my other videos, leave a like, share, and a subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And as always, you have a heart of gold, don't let them take it from you. Be sure to be safe, be kind, be yourself. Signing off, UmBASA.